Hey everyone, Enrique here. Welcome to another review. We once again take a look of other batch of episodes of Spider-Noir. This time we're taking a look of episodes 3, 4, and 5. And as usual, I'm going to give my thoughts on what happens on the episode, what I think is going to happen in the last 3 episodes of this season, what I think they're gonna show, some interesting fun facts, and all that. Let's talk about episode 3, Double Cross. As we see our threesome trying to talk about the things that they have learned from each other, comparing notes about what is Silvermane, Flint, and Cat doing, we see that Silvermane himself appears in Ben Reilly's office. And he actually hires him because Silverman believes about the rat. Now that he learned that the shipment or the cargo that he was supposed to go when the spider stopped him and was raided by the police, as well as other things that happened, as well as his mansion being burned to the ground, he wants to find out who's the rat. You know what I love? The terminology or the terms that they use in the 30s. Rat is like a whistleblower. So that's something. Well, anyway, let's go back on track. The point is, he hires Ben to find out about the rat, who is the rat, and what is the rat's next plan. So it leads to Ben, Karen, trying to figure out what's going on. Obviously, they're on the payroll of Silvermane. And one key fact that he says is that when people lie, the money tells the truth. And that is something that is going to be like the main words of this entire episode. Because there is one thing that Silvermane believes in is in money and how it is the only way to gain trust. For him at least. In that case, we see Ben investigating all around New York about who's the rat and what's going on. We see hilarious scenes of Nicolas Cage using this accent in order to go to a hospital, asking so many soldiers and police officers that were hurt in the line of duty in this ridiculous accent and tone. And it was so hilarious. It really shows Cage's sense of comedy. He really is all in when it comes to these scenes. At the same time, we see that Robbie Robertson is investigating about Tombstone since he found out about the picture, about the man who is in it, which is Lonnie Lincoln, and he tries to find out where he is, and he finds him alongside Flynn Marco. They are finding the police officers, they are trying to take them down. He takes nice pictures and believes that those kind of pictures will bring him back to the Daily Bugle. So we see that. We see Ben confronting Kat about what's going on, about what is going. He figures out that Kat Hardy is the rat. She's actually trying to blow the whistle on Silvermane and his operations, but she doesn't elaborate why, and she just remains cold and silent, or at the very least in the same attitude that she always has. At the same time, we see Ben confronting Winston. I made the mistake last video thinking that Winston was the PI helping Reilly in the first episode, but it's actually the second hand of Silvermane. So he actually tries to intimidate Ben. He actually pays him off to square off or to go away. And we see Ben's gear starting to form in his head as we finds out that the bills that he got paid by Silvermane and by Winston are marked. You see, Silvermane has the tendency of marking his bills in order to make sure that the money that he does belongs to him. That in some way, even though he's not, near you, that he's still watching somehow, because he always makes sure that his bills are always marked. Is his philosophy. It's like he says, only money tells the truth, and it has always been truth whenever he marks his bills. So we see that, We see Ben comparing notes with Karen and Robbie Robertson and figures out an idea. And he actually starts to figure out how to use the money. And the widow of Addison, who was the man who got superpowers of flames and got killed in the first episode, in order to persuade Silvermane, or at the very least, trying to save Cat and Flint at the same time. We see Flint confronting Cat Hardy in their hotel room. He is actually losing grip of his reality, thinking that Cat is afraid of him. He actually leaves her, which makes Cat really, really sad and paranoid at the same time, because she's starting to be afraid of everything that is coming into her direction. We see Ben manipulating Addison's widow in order to make the goons of Silvermane follow him. We see Ben learning that Silvermane's goons are following him, so he persuades and creates an idea. He goes to Silvermane's house, gets to his vault in which he has all the marked bills, which Ben takes because he uses that money to pay off the Addison's widow in order to leave town, which is another plan that he has. With all that, we see the goons following Ben. He uses a kid called Franklin in order to persuade, make him look like he was Ben. And I gotta tell you, the kid Franklin is actually really hilarious. He actually has a moxie into his characterization. A really smart ass kid, but very intelligent and very loyal. He actually helps Ben in throughout this episode as well as in others, so it's good to see that. We see that the mayor is actually forcing Ben into finding out where the spider is, because you can see that Silvermane is an enemy for the mayor. The mayor and Silvermane are announced one another, in spite of the fact that it was Silvermane himself who paid the mayor's campaign. So it's making things complicated. And things get even worse when we see Kat trying to leave New York, only for Ben to find her, and then Silvermane's goons, including Winston, finding them. So they take them to a place. And as we see that, we see also one thing before I forget. We see that that Robbie Robertson is talking to the head of the Daily Bugle. It's not James Jonah Jameson, and he actually is more calm than him. But he uses the photos that Robbie took in order to put Lonnie and Flint as criminals, which makes Robbie very upset, because that's not what the goal was with the pictures. It was to tell the truth. There is something that I really enjoy about Robbie, is that despite everything, he's still a good guy who wants to get the truth out. You underestimate the level of journalism and integrity that Robbie always has in Spider-Man stories. And this one is no exception. But back to our heroes. We see that Ben and Cat are taken to a place in a park, which is where Silvermane is, while alongside all the goons. Winston tells Silvermane that it was Ben and Cat who were conspiring against him, and he gets Addison's widow to get the money, the money that she receives to be paid off to leave town, and she gives it to Silvermane. And guess what? Silvermane, looking at the bills, he realizes that the one he marked was Winston's. So if you haven't followed, Ben used the marked bills from Silvermane that they gave to Winston. One of them was with Winston. He gave it to Ben in order to pay him off to leave the bar. Ben uses that alongside the money that he acquired from Silvermane in order to frame Winston as the rat. It's complicated, but this is what I really enjoy, and that's the point of this episode. Ben realizes that Kat is about to be killed, and instead of preventing another Ruby situation in which another woman loses her life from forces that she cannot control, Ben does the smart thing and actually friends one of the goons that Silverman has. And Winston is the perfect option because he can be intimidating, but he can be looking like a rat, and he gets killed by Silvermane. So the episode ends with him dead, and with Silvermane saying, can you make another digging burial, Ben?" And he shoots. Now let's take a look of the next episode called A Mistake I'll Never Make Again. We see the fallout of episode 3 as we see that both Ben and Kat are still alive in the bar, and as Kat is singing to the entire crowd, Ben starts talking to Silverman, starts to become more closer to him, and in a way in which Silverman feeling like he unraveled who was the rat and killing that rat, thinking that was Winston, as well as killing Gio, who was Winston's right hand. After doing that, he starts drinking more and having more conversations with Ben Reilly. Now, obviously, both Ben and Kat feel unease with this because it just shows how intimidating and how scary Silverman can be when he's not holding back, when he is betrayed. I mean, this is a guy who literally payrolled the mayor of New York City on that time, Mayor Morris. So things are getting even complicated for them. Kat is definitely feeling disgusted by all this because she figured that, well, she was either gonna run away or die, and she rather do both or even settle for the third option, which is killed Silvermane. But is becoming more difficult now that he has more eyes everywhere ever since discovering the rat. But of course, learning throughout the episode, we see that Kat is learning more about Ben, and Ben is learning more about Kat's backstory. We see that both Ben and Kat are confining each other about their past, the past loved ones, and discussing what happened to them and the tragedies they fell to. In Kat's case, it was learning that she was about to be engaged and married to a dentist who was in love with Kat. You see, Kat Hardy started out as a very poor singer, singing in a theater that she takes Ben to. I mean, this was an old theater that she used to sing. Then Silverman discovered her, made her singer to his bar, and that's where she found the dentist. She was about to marry him until Silverman learned about the relationship and killed the guy. So yeah, poor dentist. At the same time, we learn a little bit more about what happened to Ruby. Ben discovered or tells Kat that he was in a case, and ended up finding that Ruby was in a terrible relationship with a man, which end up putting him into prison for 5 years. Then the guy, to make Ben suffer, kills Ruby in putting her in a car and throwing her into the river. Ben couldn't get in time because he was getting drunk in a bar, and by the time he tried to save her, it was already too late. And that's what made him stop being the spider. And it should be noticed that at the time that Kat is telling Ben her story in the theater, we see that Flint discovers them. You see, during that time, we learned that Flint is been in hiding with Lonnie Lincoln. But like I said in the last episode, both Lonnie and Flint took down the police. We see more investigations between Ravi and Karen and Janet helping out Ben with the investigation. The scene with the kid Frankie and Janet learning math, and then because the kid doesn't have a school, doesn't have money to go to school, doesn't have parents, so he's learning from the streets. And Janet is kind enough to teach him about a little bit of math, only when necessary. But then, whenever they have a case, she sends the kid to find Ben. Oh, by the way, Ben was watching a movie. I don't know the name of it, but as he's watching it, he starts to mimic the language and the tone of that person in the movies. It just shows you this is the kind of thing that I love to watch as well, because I whenever I see a movie or TV show, I mimic that, and that's how I learn English, by the way. I learn English by mimicking while watching the movies or TV shows, mimicking how the characters talk, the manner they speak of, and even the accent. This is one of the things that I'm really proud of. This is how you learn. You have fun. But enough about me. Let's go back to the story. It turns out that Flint, after finding out where Kat was, where she took Ben to, he is already pissed, and with his powers, is making him even more out of control. We see that he goes to Silvermane for a job, telling him that he disappeared for his own reasons because he was being hidden by the police or something, and by the rat possibly. But yeah, Silvermane decides him to make him into his own enforcer, and won't be the last person he would acquire into his own rogues gallery. But yeah, as we see Ben and Kat getting closer, we have a wonderful scene between Ravi, Lonnie, and Janet playing cards. This is my whole thing. This is very wholesome. I really appreciate that, and the few human moments between the characters. It really is appreciated. But of course, the episode has the third climax in which we see the spider, Ben Reilly, facing off against Megawatt, in this case, the Enlightened. As I said, he's a proxy to Electro, but has different ways to fight his enemies. But in the end, we managed to see a little bit of a fight. I mean, Ben is still rusty of being the spider for 5 years. We see that Kat is watching. We see Ravi is trying to encourage him to keep going. By the way, during that same time, the mayor gets a visit by Silvermane, intimidate him into resigning his position as the mayor, thinking that that the mayor is owned to him, that Silvermane owns the mayor, and obviously proving with Flint's abilities. But yeah, things get even complicated. But the mayor discovers that the spider has resurfaced. He takes down Megawatt and decides to make a publicity stunt by saying that the spider and him are taking down the goons off the streets. Which, yeah, Ben is not reciprocating this, but it shows that the mayor is not afraid of Silvermane a little bit, but he's still afraid enough to figuring out that this is his last hope, that the spider will somehow take down Silvermane and his operations and his whole world. And as we end the episode, we see that Kat figures out who Ben Reilly is, so much so that she jumps out of the window of Ben's apartment, and he has no choice. He has to web her up in order to save her. And yeah, the episode ends with Kat and Ben getting closer, in fact, sharing a kiss. This is pretty much a wild episode introducing us to a new villain, but also learning a little bit about the characters and their relationships. And honestly, it was wonderful to see how both Kat and Ben have more in common than they thought, even though this whole thing could end up badly. Now let's talk about episode 5, which is called Betrayal. Appropriate title, since we're gonna get a betrayal by the end of this episode. But we see that after revealing his secret identity to Kat, we see Ben and Kat talking in a diner, and pretty much he lays down his own backstory. It turns out that Ben Reilly was fighting in World War One, the first war to ever be fought around the world. In this case, we see him going to the streets of Germany, fighting the bad guys. Although I don't know exactly pretty much about the First World War, I only know about the second one. But I know that this was the first one in which Ben fought in service to the country. We see him going through the trenches as he sees a jail full of soldiers that have been used by the Germans. He managed to free them all, which included Flynn Marco, Lonnie Lincoln, Dean Leiden, or Leiden in this case, and Addison, as well as another one called Ogden, which I'm gonna get into in a moment. But needless to say, after finding out about the camps, he finds out about other places where they have soldiers strapped into beds and pump them up with bloods of different kinds of animals and even insects. This was one of the most disturbing scenes of all time, and it gets even worse. As he lays the story down, we learned that after looking at all the experiments, all the soldiers who got injected in with this venom, with this blood of all the animals, he finds one with a spider, turning him into, let's just say, a man spider. And this soldier bites him. He bits Ben Reilly, and that caused him to have superpowers. The man creature got killed, and that's how Ben became the spider afterwards. So this is one of the most probably the most disturbing scenes I ever seen, because man, the makeup on the man spider, so it gives me the chills. I even showing this picture right now into the screens, it just makes my skin crawl, you know? It's one of those things that it fills you out, that makes your blood boil or something. But yeah, it's disgusting to say the least. But afterwards, we see that not only Silvermane has recruited Lonnie Lincoln, aka Tombstone, into his mix, but he managed to go into the police station and acquire Dean Leiden into his goons. He managed to recruit Dean from the jail cell. We see Dean recovering his powers and giving the guy who was torturing him, or at the very least, beating him up for information, a kiss of death. One of the things that I learned about Dean as I watch is that this guy not only is funny and obnoxious, this guy is almost like, how can I call this? The guy, I remember that there was a villain in Star Trek in the last one that they did with the original cast, and it was this Klingon bad guy with a patch in which he was starting to quote literature and other quotes like slip the dogs of war, to be or not to be, or something like that. But this guy was literally using that, and Dean is basically quoting those quotes. It seems that this guy wanted to be an actor, which it actually tracks with the character of Dean Leiden in the comics. Megawatt wanted to be an actor, and he was starting to prepare for that. But in this case, it's pretty much a reference to the original character, and maybe this is something that Dean wanted to do before he got superpowers. Who knows? All we know is that things got even complicated. Now Silvermane has an army of superpowered people, or in this case, the enforcers, on his behest. But as the investigation continues, we see that the both Ben and Robbie, by the way, is something that I didn't notice before. The name of Robbie in this show is called Joe Robertson, but people call him Robbie, so I'm still sticking to that. But we see that both Ben and Riley go into a hospital in which they manage to investigate information about a doctor. Something that happened, or something that Lonnie told both Robbie and Janet in the office about his condition, it was that he was experimented by a doctor called Alethea Favor. She was one of those doctors who experimented on him, but unfortunately his condition got accelerated, meaning that he has become stronger, but at the same time he's dying. And after being recruited by Silvermane, he pretty much sell himself as a man of with a death wish, meaning that he's gonna go out alongside Flint and Din in a blaze of glory. Although Din has other plans, if you can tell. He's going insane minute by the minute. But regardless, we see that Ben and he's starting to acquire all the files about the experiments. We see Robbie trying to learn about Alethea, and we see her assistant Ogden, who turns out that he, after seeing Ben Reilly, he recognizes him. But yeah, after the investigation, turns out that they both realize, both Ben and Ravi, realize that the powers they acquire is starting to kill them. So instead of putting on the news, uh, Ben decides to go to Kat and inform her about this because she needs to prepare her for what is about to happen next. Kat obviously feels bad about the situation, and thus Ben makes the ultimate request to Kat: leave New York, leave this life behind her, go with Ben to somewhere, an island, create something better, maybe something new and better for the both of them, which Kat decides to do. But after seeing what happens to Flint, and after confronting Flint about what's going on, realizing of her condition, she realizes that she has to do something. So she goes to talk to Lonnie about what is going on and who is the person who could possibly fix things. We see that Kat goes to visit Dr. Alethea, and not only tells her that the secret identity of Ben, but also begs her to go and experiment it on him so she can find a cure. So wow. That is the name of the title. Kat betrays Ben and reveals his secret identity in order to save Flint from his condition. Definitely, different history, different time, different universe, but just like a Hardy always does, the it plays both sides. So yeah, things got complicated. Needless to say, Ben is gonna be in a hell of a lot trouble next episode. But I'm gonna talk about that in the next video. For now, let's talk about what is happening right now and what every character is going through and the plots that they have been following throughout these 3 episodes. So let's talk about Ben Reilly and Ken Hardy's relationship in quotation marks, or in a question mark. This is obviously something that honestly got me into because I never. Here's the thing: Spider-Man and Black Cat. While there were times that they were a couple and sometimes almost getting even more personal, I never pictured them as a couple. You see, I'm a big Spider-Man, Mary Jane, shipper. I always loved them as a couple. I always believed that Spider-Man's future and only woman, it's Mary Jane Watson. Gwen Stacy, I can understand, but in this case, I prefer Spider-Man to be with Mary Jane and just leave Gwen as, a memory. But of course, times change. Everybody's taste is different. Everything is subjective. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, obviously, this is not exactly Peter Parker, although that's something that one day I'm going to talk about it in the next video. But it's important to know that Ben and Kat, I am not gonna lie, I actually dig into what they're kind of having this in those episodes. Although it should be mentioned, Kat is doing all this not just to get revenge on Silvermane, but also to free Flint from his grasp. You see, Kat is one of those women who's willing to play any side in order to survive or to free the person that she cares about the most from the clutches of evil. In this case, Silvermane's clutches on Glenn Marco. Now, but one of the things that I enjoy about this interaction between Ben and Kat is that they both lost souls. They actually confide in each other about their losses to people that they care about the most, to having to deal with the hardships of life and not being able to figure out what to do. That's one of the key parts of this entire show, that sometimes life is hard, you don't know how to deal with it until you meet someone. And in my case, this is still the same scenario. Although I should say also, given what we saw about Ka Hardy, how she portrays herself, it almost seems like she's more attracted to danger than she is about, finding a nice man. And here's the thing, when she decided to jump from the window to force Ben to save her, it almost seems like she enjoyed the danger. She welcomed it. Despite the fact that she was with Silvermane, it almost seems like she didn't care about the consequences, or almost feels like it's all she knows by now. You know what they said about Black Cat, about Felicia Hardy. She's like that Black Cat, always bringing bad luck to people, including herself. Yet she always jumps into danger. I mean, if you've seen the history of relationships that Felicia had over the years, I mean, Morbius, Hobgoblin, Spider-Man, and probably even more. But regardless of that, it's always been something almost, something that we like about the character. But of course, this is a different version. This is a variant of that Felicia Hardy. Kat is obviously wanting a different life for herself, and is definitely wanting Flint to, escape from to be a free man. And we see that, but of course, we should also see Ben's side as well. Ben has always been about, having a normal life. Ever since being bitten by that man spider, it always seems like everything in his life always goes wrong, whether it's in relationships, jobs, or even investigations. It's always been like, how can I get out of this alive, or how to just having a normal life, typical Spider-Man dilemma stuff. But that's one of the things that always makes Ben and Kat so, one for each other, because they understand their pains and struggles. And maybe, I don't know, maybe that's something that the showrunners had that in mind when they created this episode, when they created this season. And who knows? If this gets a season 2, maybe that will continue to explore that. Who knows? But now let's take a look of Silvermane recruiting more superhumans to create his own version of the Enforcers. I already mentioned in my last video that this version of the Enforcers, which was comprised of Sandman, Tombstone, and Megawatt, are pretty much a different version of the Enforcers that were normal people with different personalities. But regardless of that, it seems that, yeah, they are using this concept in order to create like this version of the Sinister Six in this case. You see, Silverman has always been believed that whenever you find more people with superpowers, the more control you get. And in this case, his whole end game, now that he acquires Sandman, Tombstone, and Megawatt, is that he wants to control New York. Obviously, his plans is to take down the mayor, or at the very least intimidate him enough in order to ruin his campaign to re-election. And he can put someone else like Hudson, another candidate, in the mayor's place. So this is obviously a plan for Silverman to continue his climb on New York, his grasp on the entire city, and do whatever he wants. And that's what Silverman always does, always fighting despite his age, despite all the odds. It's in tone with his character in the comics and in other media. Now let's talk about what are the plans of Dr. Alethea Favor with Spider. You see, in the episode that we saw, episode 5, Betrayal, we learn about what is her end goal. She has been conducting these experiments in every single person, including Flint, Lonnie, and Din. Now that she learns about the spider, she's been looking for ways to find out how to reach the spider. But after 5 years of absence, she doesn't know where he is. She doesn't know how to get it. And it seems like her goals don't seem to be, world domination or anything like that. Now, I could elaborate any later, but I will spoil episode 6. So if you haven't seen it, then I'm going to stop my spoilers here. But it seems that the key of all her plans is with Ben Reilly. She doesn't know who she is until, Kat reveal herself to her. So things are going to get more complicated, but begs the question: are Flint, Lonnie, and Den the only people that she experimented on? I mean, you have to wonder that after the war, after learning about the Germans creating people with superpowers or infuse them with animal-like creatures into their bloods, you think that this might lead to other people, you know, becoming more superpowered. Hell, if I were the show's creators, and if I make another season, I will try to explore that on that idea. You can even introduce other versions of Scorpion, the Rhino. You can create a version of the Green Goblin, Doctor Octopus. You can go crazy with those concepts. Also, keep in mind, this is the kind of stuff that maybe Craven will be, putting his hands on. Remember that Craven has always been known to be the greatest hunter in the world? What if they made a season 2, they included Craven in this, and they trying to, go after the spider? That would be a much better representation of the character, much better than the one that we got in its own movie, let me tell you that. And hopefully it could explore, Craven's inner desire to, hunt the ultimate creature. But that's something that if they make a season 2, we will take a look later. Regardless, it is important to know that for the doctor, it's impediment to find the spider, and it hinges in all the if she can find Ben Reilly. Now, before I close this up, let's try to do some fun facts. For example, did you know that the actor Andrew Popola, who plays Tombstone, has been in 2 Marvel movies? In fact, he has been in the first Marvel Sony movie in which he appeared on, Morbius. Yeah, if you remember my review from Morbius all those years ago, you know that is not one of my favorite movies, and I give it I know, pretty much a bashing, and call it out for moments that I didn't thought it was great. He also appeared in the movie The Marvels, the trio between Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, and Ms. Marvel. Now, of course, everybody has shared their own, criticisms about that movie. It was regarded as one of the worst Marvel movies that we got. Maybe one day I'll take a look at it to see what was the whole problem. But yeah, regardless, he also appeared in that movie as another alien from another planet. And in here, in my opinion, this is his most memorable, character that he has ever played, because he's playing a character with not only history with Spider-Man, but it also is going to be big when once Brand New Day is coming out. But speaking of the MCU actors who once again play characters in this show, let's talk about Alethea Favor and who is playing her. In this case, the actress who plays her is Amy Aquino. If you don't remember her, she was the doctor who was the psychiatrist of the Winter Soldier. Remember the Falcon and the Winter Soldier? And I reviewed that as well years ago, but let's just say that she was the moral compass that Bucky needed for her own, problems with his own deals with mentality. And she has been very, very helpful for Bucky in that show. So seeing her again playing another doctor, but this time making more Machiavelli schemes, that is, to say the least, shocking, but still good that the actors got another job in another Marvel property. And in another Marvel show, actually, even though this is not being made by Disney. But yeah, that's pretty much all my facts. I just wanted to bring that out. Overall, I enjoy this batch of episodes. I really have fun watching Nicolas Cage as the Spider, also as Ben Reilly, his interactions with Cat Hardy, how he's dealing with the fact that this is another woman that he falls in love with, how he tries everything in his power to make sure that she's safe, only to realize, and this is something that is going to happen in later episodes, what it will mean to him and how this all is going to backfire on him. It's also good to see how Silvermane is creating his own army of superpowered people, how he will deal with the mayor using these folks. And yeah, just a good sense of noir, mystery, and action. That's what I like. A good old fashioned and noir story with colorful characters, even though they're in black and white, unless you're watching, of course, the color version. Regardless of that, I really had a fun time with it. And yeah, that's overall my review. Next time is going to be another video, and then in 2 weeks from this one, I'm going to finally end up my reviews of the last 3 episodes of Spider-Noir, so stay tuned for that. Until then, I'm Ben Enrique, and I'll see you next time. Peace.